The first segment of the Hot 7 Nightly News is brought to you by Flow.
In the headlines, a shocking murder at a funeral. Over 50 minibus drivers infected with COVID-19. And government denounces fake COVID news.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Thursday, the 9th of September 2021. Welcome to the Hot 7 Nightly News. I am Marlon Clovis. Thank you for joining us. The latest homicide victim has been identified by the police as Augustus Ramo. And according to reports, Ramo was attending the funeral of one of the island's latest homicide victims when the lone gunman opened fire on him. Ramo fell on a tomb where he died. The incident occurred at about 5 p.m. Wednesday, September 8th, 2021 at the Shock Cemetery, Castries. The incident is under investigation by the police. Lead Fire Officer Stacey Joseph gave details of the incident.
An emergency crew from the Fire Service headquarters responded to a call on Wednesday, 8th September at approximately 5:10 p.m. The information received stated that there was an alleged shooting incident at VG in Castries. The responding officers found on scene a male individual in a sitting position in the presence of bystanders. An assessment of the patient revealed that he sustained penetrating wounds to his head. Due to the obvious signs of death, the scene was left in the care of the police.
On Wednesday, September 8, 2021, the fire service responded to a structural fire at Jacmel. Lead Fire Officer Stacey Joseph gave details of the incident.
Officers at the Fire Service headquarters responded to a call relating to a structural fire at Jacmel on Wednesday, 8th September at approximately 10:35 p.m. Emergency personnel found a single-family dwelling of wooden and concrete construction fully engulfed in flames. The structure, which measured approximately 10 by 30 feet, and its contents were fully destroyed. However, no other properties were reported affected or persons reported injured as it relates to this incident.
Today, September 9th, 2021 marks the 11th anniversary of the St. Jude's Hospital fire, which occurred in 2009. We hear more from Lead Fire Officer Stacey Joseph as she admonishes the public to be vigilant.
As we recognize today as the day in our history of the devastating and deadly fire at the St. Jude Hospital in 2009, the Fire Service would like to remind the members of the public to remain vigilant for possible fire hazards in and around your properties. We do acknowledge that we are in a pandemic and that our thoughts are mainly on keeping ourselves and loved ones safe from the virus. However, fire prevention should be a great concern for us. Losing your entire home and or livelihood to a fire while we are in a pandemic will take a great toll both financially and mentally on anyone. Bearing this in mind, we would like to encourage everyone to practice fire safety at all times and contact the fire department if any guidance is needed.
Officials of the National Council on Public Transportation have revealed that the COVID-19 pandemic has dealt a severe blow to the health and finances of bus drivers. The association has indicated that the internal data shows at least 50 bus drivers have been infected. Executive member Michael Flood confirms that some infected drivers still continue to work until they were made to get off the routes.
Over the last few weeks, of course, we have heard of the increasing numbers of bus drivers that have been infected. The number quoted by Mr. Frederick, which is the first Vice President of the NCOPT, is basically what we are aware of. And as you would know, I'm sure there are many more who are infected, which we do not know, because lately a lot of people, what they've chosen to do is when they feel unwell, is not to go for a test or not to go to the doctor and go home and do the home remedy. So I'm saying we honestly believe that the numbers are much greater than what is right now. And the sad thing is, when some of them or some people find out they are infected, they know that they are sent home to isolate or home quarantine. But the thing is, how many of them adhere to the protocols? Of course, they will go home. There might be other family members at home, and while they're COVID positive, they may not always wear a mask. They may not always sanitize. and unlike the other people in the house. And this is how I believe, or we believe, that that disease is being spread. Bus drivers, over the years, we've known that some of them really don't follow anything, any rules. And this is why we believe that a lot more needs to be done while the National Council on Public Transportation, whilst we're doing our utmost to bring them to some form of subjection. Of course, we believe that the authorities need to at least meet us halfway to ensure that protocols are followed by bus drivers.
Flood also offered some stern advice to drivers and commuters with a view to curbing the spread on the bus routes and the wider community.
We are suggesting to the drivers that they should not wait when they feel ill. We believe that the test is something that is free of charge in most instances, that they should go and do the test. When they are asked to isolate, they need to stay home and make sure they do what needs to be done. Most importantly, if they tested positive, they need to ensure that they do not go and spread the disease to their family, to their loved ones, and most importantly, to the traveling public. Because if you are tested positive and you are in that bus, which becomes an incubating room, okay, every person you transport from point A to point B becomes a potential victim. So we're saying to them, once it is believed that you are ill or you have been tested positive, you need to stay home until you're given the all clear that you could go back on the road. Because by doing that, you're saving your life, you're saving the very commuters that you've been transporting every day that help you pay your bills, and you're saving your family. So our advice is please follow the protocols in place and ensure that if you're not well, you report it to your association and you stay home until the all clear is given.
The National Council on Public Transportation was scheduled to have dialogue with the Ministry of Transport later this week regarding the way forward. Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, was Wednesday paid a courtesy visit by the Right Honorable Anne-Marie Trevelyan, UK State Minister for Energy and Climate Change. Discussions centered around the climate resilient projects and major areas of cooperation, including the upgrade to the Millennium Highway and the West Coast Road. The two officials also discussed the COVID-19 pandemic. The UK minister stated that a major area of concern is the vaccine hesitancy among St. Lucians. She offered some advice towards improving the rate of vaccination in St. Lucia.
We are very concerned about our status as far as travel is concerned. And we are doing, the COVID pandemic is affecting the entire world. And in St. Lucia, we are doing our best to mitigate the effects of COVID. I can assure you that the safety of our citizens and the safety of our visitors are key to our survival, because St. Lucia depends very heavily. In fact, over 50% of our GDP is based on tourism, and we will try our best to secure our citizens and our visitors. So I want to tell you that the government of St. Lucia will do whatever we have to do to ensure that we mitigate the effects of COVID and St. Lucia becomes a country where, albeit different, but you can enjoy our country. We also have very serious initiatives to discuss with you. As you know, and I'm sure the Minister for Infrastructure will enlighten you on the work we're doing on our roads. And again, the west coast of our country, that's where we have the Pitons and all the Pitons is a World Heritage Site. And then we needed to improve that network. That initiative was taken before I was in government, but as I've always said, when even an initiative is started, once it's a good initiative, we shall continue. So we want to continue that work for the employment that it will create and for the infrastructure improvement. So we thank you for, I think that initiative was started by Prime Minister Cameron.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And it's followed. It took some time, but it started, and most things leading. We also understand the vagaries of the weather and climate change. very important to us. Our region can be wiped out, literally wiped out in a few hours with a hurricane. We can be here today, and tomorrow our country is completely wiped out, and I mean completely. So climate change is very important to us. We look forward to the interventions in Glasgow. My Minister of Sustainable Development is going to be there.
Prime Minister Pierre assured the British policymaker that his government would leave no stones unturned in fighting the pandemic, and that he was very appreciative of the importance of the UK, both as a tourism source market and development partner.
I think on the challenges of COVID, I absolutely hear you, and it's great to see the work that you're doing to try and reduce vaccine hesitancy. It's a challenge in a number of countries, and trying to get to grips with the reasons why, and they're different in every country, but get to grips with that is one. I was talking to someone yesterday about it, and challenging me on how we'd achieved it, and it was a very interesting challenge. And actually, we did it by our GPs and our doctors and nurses in our communities being the advocates, in fact. So it was where those relationships with our most vulnerable were strongest, where the trust was strongest. It was our doctors and nurses persuading, the most vulnerable to have the vaccine and to come, get beyond that anxiety, because it was new that there was, the worry of whether it was okay. But I think that continues to be a challenge that we all want to encourage you to resolve, because of course that's one of the reasons, as you say, to our UK solution relationship and our, the tourist trade, which we want to see back up and running as strong as possible for you. One of the criteria for our system, our foreign travel system for UK citizens, is obviously the level of vaccination in country, which then demonstrates that reduced risk. So that continues to be, I know, something that the High Commissioner will be happy to work with you to make sure that those messages, as you make progress, are fed back into the UK system.
Aaron Alexander, former president of the Ayanola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari and deputy leader of the NGP, applauds the current administration for participating in the first Africa CARICOM Summit. Alexander is appealing to the government to include the Rastafari movements, who have been in the forefront in the drive to promote African pride and consciousness.
The recently concluded summit between the African Union and CARICOM was historic in nature, but equally inspiring to conscious-minded people all over the world. This kind of engagement between the mainland motherland Africa and her children in the diaspora is definitely a step in the right direction. People of the Caribbean, although some may choose to deny this fact, but we have an identity crisis on our hands. This identity crisis can be one of the root causes of many of our social ills, especially black-on-black violence or youth-on-youth violence, domestic violence, especially against women, and even child abuse in its many manifestations. We applaud our Prime Minister for making himself available to participate in this historic summit and not adopting a posture that this is not important. We therefore encourage the government to keep on this path and bring along and get involved the Rastafari community moving forward, because after all, it is well known that the Rastafari community, more than any other over the decades, have been the ones keeping the consciousness and the conscious flame about Africa alive and in remembrance for the upliftment of not only the people of St. Lucia, but the people of the world. The many issues which were spoken of at that summit by both African leaders and CARICOM leaders, especially the issue of reparations, clearly magnifies that we are asserting ourselves as the descendants of a people determined to suffer no longer from the many ills which we inherited from that wicked system of slavery and colonialism, which left us economically, socially, culturally, and medically bankrupt. It is time that Africa and the CARICOM countries are compensated by those who created this greatest crime against humanity. We must all remember that it was in April of 1966, His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, at the time on a Caribbean tour, he invited the Caribbean to become the 6th region of Africa under the umbrella of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, which is now called the African Union, the AU. We must not miss out on this opportunity again.
You're watching the Hot 7 Nightly News. Still to come, government launches a major project to combat climate change. The chairman of Invest St. Lucia promises greater support for local investors. And government announces fake COVID news.
The first segment of the Hot 7 Nightly News was brought to you by Flow.